Welcome back. Tonight we introduce you to a Siouxland veteran who considers himself a Laotian veteran after spending most of his time in Laos as the Vietnam War began. KCAU-9 News reporter Jason Toktajian introduces us to this former U.S. Army surgeon in this week's Veterans Voices.
Most of the faculty there were World War II veterans, and so I was convinced by one of them that if I'm going to spend the rest of my life in hospitals, I ought to take an assignment in the Army where I get to play with all of the expensive toys.
Dr. David Paulsrud began his career in the U.S. Army in 1959.
I had graduated from medical school when I was drafted. In 1959, I was 25 years old. I was probably the youngest member of our Special Forces group.
Pursuing a career in the medical field, Dr. Paulsrud would receive orders for Laos.
We had 6- and 8-man teams in a dozen villages throughout Laos, and each team had a medic, and I was in charge of supervising them. So I was the only Western-trained doctor in Laos at that time, so I was looking after the British.
After a year in Laos, Dr. Paulsrud would end up stateside.
I wound up taking my orthopedic training at Walter Reed Hospital. The Army was kind of enthusiastic about me because of my experience being airborne in Special Forces.
Paulsrud says his time working at Walter Reed exposed him to the harsh reality of the Vietnam War.
My experience at Walter Reed was pretty traumatic because of my experience in Laos and my understanding of the foolishness of the war. And here I was getting all these young men with severe and life-altering injuries.
After 4 years at Walter Reed, Paulsrud would serve in Colorado and Alaska until making his way back to Sioux City in 1970. Paulsrud says veterans like him weren't very popular, so receiving thanks for his service was rare.
Gave an instructional course on opioids and about 5 years ago, and the woman that introduced me thanked me for my service, and that's the first time I'd ever heard that. And I was just amazed because when I was at Walter Reed, we were told not to wear uniforms in town.
Jason Toktajian, KCAU-9 News.
Dr. Paulsrud says that he got veteran placed on his driver's license just 2 years ago, adding that he didn't keep much memorabilia during his days from service. Everything he brought back from the Army now belongs to his grandson.